All right, welcome to Random Thoughts for this week. Today I want to talk about a little bit about people. More specifically, saints. Okay, am I talking about like Saint so-and-so or Saint such and such or Saint do with this or Saint that by that? No, I'm going to talk about real, honest to God, salt of the earth, saints. We'll get into that. This episode of Random Thoughts. Come join me, will you? Saints. Yes. It's not about a specific person like Saint Jerome, Saint Augustine, Saint Tertius, Saint Paul, Saint John, Saint Peter, Saint Matthew, Saint fill in the blank. I'm not talking about the extra special people who have lived their faith out in extraordinary times and extraordinary situations. That's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about average, everyday, run-of-the-mill. You'll never know that they're a saint unless somebody says something. People. The average, day-to-day Christian person you'll meet in the grocery store, or you'll meet in this environment, or in our case, meeting online. What's a saint? Well, we've got to really deal with that question first. What is a saint? Or more accurately asked, who is a saint? Now, I've already mentioned several people who have been designated as saints, like Saint Jerome. Well, Saint Jerome, he is the one who translated the original languages of the Bible, the Greek and the Hebrew, into what is known as the Vulgate, or the Latin, the official Latin translation of the Roman Church back in the day of Martin Luther. There's still, you can still get it in the library. You can still probably buy it on Amazon. I don't know. But St. Jerome was the one who translated that into Latin. Saint Tertius, I don't even know if that's a real person or not. I just came up with the name. Saint Paul, obviously we know who Saint Paul is. Saint Peter, we know who Saint Peter is. These are the guys that are in the Bible. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We always call them saints. Why do we call them saints? We call them saints because they lived saintly, set-apart lives, specifically in the life of Jesus. Specifically, they did a task that was asked of them. Like, for example, St. Paul, missionary, gospel writer, writer of the gospel, more accurately spoken. St. Peter, follower of Jesus for 3 years, disciple, one of the original 12, writer of an epistle, Latin word for letter, to the church. St. John, same person. St. Augustine. He is a man who lived in right around, I think it was the year 300. Don't quote me on the date. But he's the one that wrote City of God. And he's the one whose order, the Augustinians, that Luther joined originally. So, these people, extraordinary tasks for extraordinary times, for extraordinary events. How about Saint Jane, Saint Jimmy, Saint Fred, Saint George, Saint Bob? You know, what about these guys? Well, who are they? Well, these names. I'm sure there is a Christian by that name somewhere in the line of Christianity who lived a relatively ordinary day-to-day life, maybe lived as a husband, maybe lived as a wife, maybe lived as a son, maybe lived as a daughter, a grandchild, relatively ordinary life. So what makes them a saint? What fundamentally makes them a saint is their belief in what God did for them in Jesus Christ. That's what makes them a saint. Not what they could do, not what they did do, not what they didn't do. None of that makes them a saint. Because the word saint is derived from the Latin word sanctus, holy, holy one, also known as sacred, set apart. This is what makes a person holy. This is what makes a person special. Who sets them apart? Does their life set them apart? Like, I don't know if it's ever happened, but Mother Teresa, living the orphanage in India, there was conversation after she died that they were trying to fast track her into sainthood because she did such wonderful things. She did. Saint Teresa did wonderful things. But Saint Teresa was a saint before she did the wonderful things. Why is that? She believed in the salvation of God through Jesus Christ. That's why. That's what makes all believers sacred. That's what makes all of us saints. Now, why am I bringing this up? Why is this topic of conversation in our random thoughts? Well, this past Sunday was Reformation Day, October 31st. We've turned it into Halloween. That's a whole other topic for a whole other video. I'm not going there with that. But it was called All Hallows Eve in the Old English, which led to the very next day, November 1st, as All Saints' Day. Well, that's what November 1st is, All Saints' Day. It is the day on which we celebrate all the saints. For all the saints who from their labor rest. It's one of our hymns in our hymnal. We celebrate All Saints' Day. But the stereotype of a saint is one who has either passed away, died. Oh, that person was a saint. Did you see what she did? Did you see what he was all about? The life that they lived at, they were saintly, they were sacred, they were set apart. It's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is they're living with Jesus now in heaven. Through faith in Christ, they are now set apart, a saint, living with God, celebrating, living in their mansions, etc. That's not all. There's a whole gazillion more that are out there that are saints that don't know that they're saints. They're just average believers. Now, if you said to somebody who is a believer, hey, you're a saint, and you'll probably say, no, I'm not. I'm a rotten, good-for-nothing sinner. That's who I am. What they don't realize is what also they are. They are a saint, not because of their activities, not because of their thought process, not because how good they were. They are also saints by means of the declaration of God. In Revelation chapter 7, which is the foundational passage from which I'm going to preach this coming Sunday. So I'm not going to go into it. You'll catch that Sunday. But it talks about what is a saint. Simply put, a saint is a person whose life was washed white by the blood of the Lamb. That's what makes a saint. Doesn't make us who are saints on earth. It perfects us. We're just still living in the realm of sinner and saint. And that's a unique combination of characteristics I think it's unique to Lutheranism. I don't think many other people outside of the Lutheran Church, the Lutheran denomination, use that terminology. What is a person who is simultaneously sinner and saint? Me. You, who believe. Every person who has lived on this earth as a believer is a person who is simultaneously a sinner and a saint. Why do I say that? Well, to be a sinner, all you have to do is be alive. Into sin my mother conceived me, David writes in Psalm 51. I'm a sinful person. I'm conceived that way. I can't escape my sinfulness unless I believe in the promise of salvation that comes from God through Christ Jesus. That's what makes me a saint. The declaration of salvation, the work of Jesus Christ, makes me a saint. Sinner, saint, coexisting. Notice I haven't done something. I haven't done that. They do not intermingle. They occupy the same human being, the same believer Christian, but they do not intermingle. They cannot intermingle. They will not intermingle. So as a sinner and saint, watch where my hands go. That's how I act. As a sinner and a saint, and if you're really paying attention to your faith and to your life, you'll realize what I'm talking about. What am I talking about? They coexist in the same person, but they don't intermingle with one another. Do not do this. They do not do this. They do this. One pushes one out of the way. The other pushes one out of the way. Depending on time and space, they are trying to take control of me. Which one is operating? Well, right now, I can tell you this. For me, the saint is operating. I wouldn't be able to talk to you about this if the saint wasn't operating. The sinner has been subjected, pushed down, pushed back, pushed away, so that I can talk to you as fellow saints and fellow sinners. But I know sometime that sinner's going to want to push back. That sinner's going to want to try and push that saint out of the way because he doesn't like occupying the same person. I want that saint out of here. The saint is going the same thing. So it's going back and forth. Who will save me from this wretched man that I am? That's the question that Paul asked in Romans. God did. God saved me. So we celebrate the real world saints, who are real world sinners and saints co-occupying the same person. And one day, when God decides it's time, Bob, to come home, the sinner, who has already been killed by the grace of God, is going to cease to exist. The saint will totally and completely. St. Paul writes this in 1 Corinthians 15 about the resurrection. The resurrection kills the mortal, kills the part that wants to hang on to this world, and replaces it with the immortal. The person that now resides in heaven, just that, resides in heaven, is a perfect, 100%, no sinner saint. And they're celebrating with God, and to which we celebrate their life. And we celebrate our lives, troubled and challenged as they may be. So, if you want to know more about this whole sinner-saint struggle, I've only scratched the surface of what it is. Please comment below. Let's carry on a conversation of this duality of sinner and saint that's inside every Christian that still lives on earth, and how that changes. Talk to me. We'll go over this, will you? Will you? It's going to be a fun time. But for now, we're going to celebrate sainthood. Sainthood of those who have gone to be with Jesus and are living with Jesus forever, and sainthood alive and well and living in the world today as well. And let's talk about how that works out. All right, give us a thumbs up if you like this. Share this with your friends and family. Help them get into this dialogue and debate about simultaneous sinner and saint, and let's have a conversation. Also, if you haven't done so, I'd really love it if you would subscribe to our channel. That way, then you can ring the bell, ding, and then in that way, you will be notified of every new video that posts up, whether it's these random thoughts, the Word on Sunday morning, or our live stream on Sunday morning as well, and anything else that pops up on YouTube, our weekly announcements, which is going to come up today as well. Thank you very much for your attention. I'll see you guys later. Have a great week. We'll see you Sunday. Bye.
Leap of faith, so here I go. I'm diving